Salutations everyone, welcome to another Overwatch video. I know it's been a minute, but we are back at it. I do apologize for the little bit of Overwatch hiatus, but I'm playing the game a lot right now, and this new season and the current patch that we're in right now, I know there's some changes that are supposed to be coming out rather soon. The state of the game is wacky. It is very wacky right now. Especially when it comes to the tanks, which is kind of what I want to focus on mostly for this game. We've obviously dealt with a lot of different changes in the meta for the top echelon of players in the Overwatch League, and things are usually a lot more stagnant for, you know, competitive play, just because the way the communication works and the strength of heroes that you really just can't be denied or devalued as much in your chaotic, less communicative, very unfocused fire type of play that we see in competitive. Things tend to be, you know, the same, and we've heard a lot of people, you know, patch after patch with the patch saying, oh, these tanks look great. Oh, Reinhardt's not that awesome. He's not, a #1 pick anymore. And he still was, right? He was still the end-all, be-all tank. And if you were a tank player and you weren't like maining Reinhardt, you're basically throwing, or you're like a top 500 wrecking ball player, right? Like there was like no in between. You just had to play Reinhardt. And now something weird has happened. Something that honestly I never expected to happen. It seems that as a community, the Overwatch competitive scene throughout at least the majority of levels, as bottom 96%ers, everyone has kind of agreed not to play Reinhardt anymore. Everyone got sick of playing Reinhardt and no one's playing Reinhardt. Like, it's legit uncommon to see a Reinhardt. Now, you'll still see him, and he still is the best tank in the game if you are playing on a composition that makes any sort of sense and has any sort of synergy, right? And, competitive scene, the lower and lower level you go, obviously, Overwatch League is, completely different. Top 500, obviously, playing by their own rules. We had the role queue and the tank, nerf changes that shifted the ground beneath all of this. And we also, of course, had all the buffs that came to DPS characters to try to combat goats. But then, after roll queue, those changes were not reverted, and then the tanks kept getting nerfed and nerfed and nerfed, and then we had the ultimate tank nerf. And then we had, the bans. We had the ban heroes, and that was kind of throwing everything off a little bit and really didn't make sense, anything, below Grandmasters, because things just didn't really work out that way. And now, and even then, for a while, it was like you have to play Reinhardt or you're legitimately throwing. Now, no one's playing Reinhardt, and the tank meta is at a loss. It's crazy out there. We're seeing people main tank Zarya. We're seeing a lot of ball Roadhog. We're seeing Roadhog Zarya. We're seeing Roadhog Winston. We're seeing Rhine Winston. We're seeing, Orisa Sigma, but we're seeing Sigma Winston. We're seeing Sigma Zarya. We're seeing very few Reinhardt, and we're seeing people and teams going main tank Zarya, going Zarya Roadhog with main tank Zarya, and absolutely having no problem dealing with Reinhardt teams that, have really shit DPS characters and no focus fire, right? That is something that we didn't often see, and now we're seeing it a ton. And, D.Va got, a little bit of buffage, and that was nice. But let's just take a look over the past year, right? Just the past year and the different patches that we've seen. And tell me if you can notice a trend. Ashe has been buffed and buffed, right? Bastion has been buffed and then buffed. Doomfist, a little bit of nerfage. Echo was added, so we'll just give that one a pass. Yes, she got some nerfs, but, she was a new character. We'll give them a free pass on Echo. She's kind of stable right now and definitely not meta and not something that you see very often, even though she's still very, very good. Genji got buffed and buffed and buffed again to where the fact that nothing can stop Genji. Genji does not have a counter in this game right now. Obviously, there is you know an experimental nerfs being thrown out there where his primary fire does 2 less damage and his secondary fire it no longer has that insane buff on its firing rate. But he's still way strong and is absolutely unbeatable right now. We have not seen a DPS character this oppressive in the matchmaking game since the enormous ironclad, unstoppable, you can't kill him no matter what you do Bastion buff, which for some reason lasted on consoles for like a month longer than it did on PCs, right? Like that's the only time that the patches have been that far off. Genji was not good in GOATs because he wasn't good against tanks, right? Now, as Genji is in live client, he is a tank destroyer. Nothing can stop him. He does an insane amount of damage and has one of the fastest building ults in the game. It probably has the fastest building ult in the game after all the buffs to his damage, right? And all his damage per second that he doles out. And it's one of the best, you know, DPS ultimates in the game. It's at worst, it's the 3rd best DPS ultimate, right? Behind Blizzard and EMP. I think it's hard to put more than those 2 ultimates ahead of Genji Blade. And I kind of do. I still think those 2 ultimates are better, and they charge way slower. Whereas Genji always had one of the fastest charging, along with, you know, Riptire and Pulse Bomb. And while Riptire is insanely strong and Junkrat is super oppressive right now that nobody seems to understand or even try to counter, Genji... he kills everything. Where you know, Moira got a ton of nerfs, right? And we'll go back and do that. I just want to focus on Genji here for a little bit because, you know, he's gotten a lot of attention and is getting some nerfs because they have to, and is super overtuned from Bronze all the way to Overwatch League, right? Is just way too strong. There's nothing that can stop him. We heard all the commentators saying, you know, Genji Blade's good, but without a nano boost or a rally behind it, it's not going to do anything. And what have we seen time and time and time again, even before the Genji buffs? Without any support, without a Mercy Pocket, without a beat or armor from Brig ult or nano boost, Genjis are still just getting triples and quads. Completely unassisted, unbuffed Genji Blade. It's like these people have no idea what they're talking about. They're watching a different game, it seems to me at some times. But right now it's absolutely shredding. And with all the Moira nerfs, and I always thought, okay, Moira's getting nerfs, that's fine. I don't want to have to always play her because of how strong she was, even though she was still quite strong and was still the highest outputting of heals in the game. I was like, there's always going to be a place for Moira to stop those annoying Genjis, right? But now, Genji hard counters Moira. There's nothing she can do. He just dashes at her, and then blam, blam, she's dead. The fact that he can cancel his Reflect, and the Reflect takes longer, like, why did they add both of those buffs? That makes no sense. Why make it go longer and cancelable? Either do one or the other, because that is just busted. It is super busted. And where Moira can, take advantage of him trying to reflect, or Zarya's as well, or Symmetra's, anything with the beam, we could catch him out on that. And obviously, we could track him, we could self-heal and fade away. Now Genji doesn't give a shit about that because he does so much damage so quickly, and obviously still has that dash just as strong as ever. And I'm not saying the dash needs to be nerfed, but when everything else is stronger, it's just super duper oppressive, right? And I don't know how these Moira buffs are going to work if these end up going through, which who knows if they will. That is a wacky change, but I agree Moira needs a little bit of something after, she got some nerfs warranted, more nerfs warranted, and then more nerfs, and it was like, did she really need that one? To change to her orbs, kind of wonky. At the very least her healing orb, but now they're looking at only changing the damage orb when it's like it was already nerfed, like the damage orb is not an issue anymore and they're still looking at nerfing it, or changing every single thing about it. Really weird. Okay, so Hanzo got nerfed and then got unnerfed, pretty much, right? In a good spot. Junkrat got buffed, and now he's insane. Nothing can stop Junkrat right now. I don't care if you're getting full charge with Zarya, which I am. Junkrats are annihilating teams because there's just not enough shielding. I don't care if you have defense matrix and bubble and a Rhine shield or even double shield. Junkrat is shredding these minuscule shields because we only have minuscule shields left in this game outside of a Reinhardt. But if he's not getting supported, he's just farm fuel, right? And Riptire is one of the fastest charging ults in the game, and it's guaranteed double kills at the very least. and is just incredibly strong. Really good positioning. McCree, buffed and buffed and buffed and buffed, right? May, buffed and buffed and buffed and buffed, and then a nerf, right? Pharah got a nerf for no reason, and then got a buff, and then got an unnerf to where she's like better than she was a year ago. Reaper got buffs and 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 buffs, and then he finally got a nerf, right? Soldier got buffs and buffs. Sombra got buffs. Symmetra got buffs. Torbjorn got buffs. Tracer got a small buff. Widowmaker nerfed. Like, she's like, her and Doomfist are like the only two DPS that are worse today than they were a year ago. And you know, Doomfist is still really great. The Widowmaker nerf, totally unwarranted. Then we take a look at the supports. Ana's been nerfed. Bap has been nerfed. Brig has been nerfed and nerfed and nerfed. Lucio, pretty much the same. Mercy, small buff. Moira, nerfs. Zen got nerfed and then unnerfed. So pretty much in the same spot and in a bad spot at that. So are we seeing a trend? All the DPSs were buffed outside of Widow and, you know, a little bit to Doomfist. All of the healers got nerfed outside of Mercy, and people are never going to be happy with how she is. And take a look at the tanks. Orisa, nerfed and nerfed. Reinhardt, buffed and then nerfed, and then a little unbuffage, I should say. Roadhog, buffed and buffed. Sigma, nerfed and nerfed. Winston, buffed. Wrecking Ball, nerfed. Zarya, pretty much the same. So are we seeing a trend? Are we seeing a trend here? And why it's been so difficult playing, especially tanks? I felt like it was really rough playing healer a couple of seasons ago, but the last 2 seasons playing tank has been uber rough and really wonky right now because Reinhardt is just not enough, and no one's playing double shield with Orisa Sigma, even though, like, you know, obviously it's an easy comp to do. It's not like we're trying to do goats. It's not like we're trying to do dive. You know, Sigma Orisa, which, you know, is still being run a little bit, is still not being run nearly as much as Zarya Reinhardt or Wrecking Ball Zarya or Roadhog Ball or Roadhog Zarya. It's insane. And so with like I don't want Reinhardt to be the end-all and be-all of tanks. Like, I hated having to only play Reinhardt. So it's a little bit more fun now that I get to play other kinds of tanks that aren't Reinhardt. But if you aren't getting support, if you're getting those Roadhog throwers on your team, and the enemy team is running something that makes any sort of sense, shit is rough. If you're running Reinhardt and your teammates running Roadhog or D.Va, well, I feel like D.Va is a great character and definitely didn't deserve a lot of the nerfs and definitely needed those buffs. And then she also got another nerf. I forgot about the nerf to their boosters after getting buffed to her boosters, right? She can work, but she's still getting just annihilated by the Hog Zarya combo, even if she's being paired with a Reinhardt, because, you know, your team is running a Genji that can't get Blade every minute, which is insane because there's no reason why that shouldn't be the case. And they're running a Widow or a McCree, right, or a Soldier. So things have become, over the last 3 seasons especially, every single game has become more and more, or every single patch has become more and more reliant on the DPS play. Especially since all the DPSs have been buffed recently, every single tank has been nerfed recently, and every single healer has been nerfed recently. Things are really weird. They're really weird playing non-DPS right now. Things are really weird, and you see a lot of these games. So, like, I have to play a lot of Sigma right now, which is better than having to play a lot of Reinhardt. I feel like Sigma, if you have a bad team, Reinhardt is not the answer. You're going to get destroyed, whether attack, defense, payload, 2CP, hybrid, whatever it is. Rein is just not enough right now. If you have someone, you know, who's good on Zarya, and you're going into King's Row on a, you know, attack point A, then sure, there's no issue with going with Reinhardt there. You can still get ripped apart by a Junkrat and a Genji, but still, it can absolutely work, and it's not a bad strat. But with all these Roadhog throwers and all these Wrecking Ball throwers that you keep getting, Sigma is really your only response to try to deadlift your team, and I mean deadlift your team. You are trying to pull the enemy team and your team away from that loss, and that seems to only really working with Sigma right now. So I'm playing a ton of Sigma because when it comes to protecting your teammates, Orissa's shield is just, it's peanut brittle, right? It's super duper weak, and her fortify just isn't very strong. And if she's not getting support, she doesn't do a ton of DPS. Her halt, while is very fine without any teamwork, basically is just a dead ability at this point. If you're not getting environmental kills with it. And Reinhardt, sure, he has the shield and an amazing ultimate, but if he isn't getting supported, that shield is getting destroyed, and he's just farm food. Sigma, he has the shield, and he also has the suck, right? So when the shield's down, he has that to give himself extra tankiness so that he can allow his shield to come back. And he's got the rock to stop the divas coming at you, the roadhogs from hooking or continuing their heal, or their whole hogs, right? Recreation, pretty difficult ability to use, but you're always going to get value out of it every single game, because you're bound to hit a few. Now, I never liked his accretion 1-2 combo with the primary fire, and I'm glad that that's gone, even though I have to play a lot of Sigma right now. He's just, that ability was too strong, and he did warrant those nerfs that he has. I like where he's at right now, although he is pretty much mandatory in a lot of circumstances, especially if you're running Orisa. A lot of people love to complain about how strong Orisa is, but Orisa is only strong if Sigma exists. Double barrier is only a thing if Sigma is there to facilitate it. Reinhardt does not facilitate double barrier. Winston definitely does not facilitate double barrier. Sigma is the only thing that can facilitate that, and Orisa has the ability to stand on her own while Sigma is out there absorbing, throwing rocks, and waiting for his shield to come back. And obviously, he has one of the best ultimates in the game and does, way more damage than Ball or Winston or Orisa or Reinhardt can do, or Diva even. I'm getting tons of gold medals with Sigma, which, getting gold medals doesn't really mean anything, but if you're losing and your main tank is getting gold limbs and gold damage, then that means your team is doing bad. If you're winning 5, 4, 6-minute games and your Sigma or your Reinhardt has gold limbs with 8, that's fine. That just means you steamrolled the enemy team, right? But I had to deadlift this team the entire way, mostly with the Sig, just because you have to rely on that kind of damage mitigation, that powerful ultimate, that may not be as good as Grav or have the huge game-winning factors as consistently as a Shatter does against teams that do not have their own Reinhardt, which is very, very common. And, Diva Bombs sometimes can be good enough. If you're running Diva Roadhog, sometimes Diva Bombs are enough to win the game because the enemy team is running Diva Sigma or, Winston Zarya or something wacky where they don't have a shield to block those bombs, and those bombs will just win the fights outright, and then the game is over, right? So things are in a really wacky spot, and I had to do everything to stop the enemy team this time. Now, my team did a good job of holding them off while I was dead here, and we end up barely sealing this victory, which I did not see coming from the first round to the second to the third to the fourth round. So things are wacky, especially the fact that Genji players are just really bad at the game, and DPS players as a whole, because there's just so damn many of them, and almost all of them are trash. And I'm getting paired with these top 500 healers and off tanks one game, and I'm getting gold players the next, but it doesn't matter. Every single time I get a top 500 on my team, we lose because we also have a gold DPS player that gets 0 damage on Widow or McCree or Genji, right? Where they can just pick Junkrat and get guaranteed value, guaranteed team fight wins. So things are really on the shoulders of getting damage done in the team comps right now, because you cannot rely on any one tank or one healer to carry fights, to have even with synergy, not just solo carrying, but having some sort of synergy where the Brig is protecting the Ana or something like that from the Genji. It's nothing is good enough to stop Genji right now. And nothing is good enough to stop spam damage, whether it be from Pharmacy or Junkrat Ashe, right? Ashe is insanely strong right now, which, she has got that small nerf to her Dynamite, and I don't think needs a ton of nerfs. I think she's in a decent spot, especially since her ultimate isn't very good, and you can argue McCree's ultimate isn't good either. But flank McCrees are getting team kills constantly. I don't care if you're in Bronze or if you're in Masters, that shit is just happening constantly because no one wants to look at a flank. and your tanks and your healers can only do so much. So things are really wonky right now. Hopefully the Genji nerfs do something. I don't think they will do enough, honestly, and he will run roughshod over teams. And if you don't focus down these Junkrats, you're dead, because there is not enough shielding and there's not enough healing in the game right now to sustain bad DPS play, which is something we could do before, but has become increasingly difficult from every single patch that's nerfing all the healers and tanks and buffing all the DPS, which only gives people more incentive to just be bad at DPS and not play the other roles.